Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Success Thursday this week with Tanzil Choudhury. Hi, Tanzil. Welcome back.
Hey, Vasco. Glad to be back again.
Absolutely. So, Tanzil, on Thursdays, we talk about success. It's Success Thursday after all. But before we dive into that, we want to know, what's your favorite retrospective format and why?
I like to change it around, but when you call about favorite, I think so at some point or at least once a year, I go back to the Sailboat Retro. If not multiple times a year, but at least once a year, I feel that is very important, the Sailboat Retro for me.
So when you think about the sailboat, of course, I'll put the link on the show notes and people can go and find out what it is in practice. What comes to your mind, though, Tanzil, when you think about Sailboat Retro, you're maybe preparing that a few days before the retro with the team. What comes to your mind? What are you looking for when you use the Sailboat Retro?
So I have used the Sailboat Retro. One of my recent coach have talked about Futurespective. We are so often we do retrospective. We do not invest a lot of time looking into the future. And that's where I use the Sailboat Retro and or Sailboat, the diagram or the picture where, I went to the team and I said, okay, let's look back in last 1 year and let's look future to forward one more year and let's connect as a team. What is our goal and vision? Where do you want to be a year from now? We talk about, what could block us? What are the, could be some of the rocks or some of the anchors, what could prevent us from moving forward in next 1 year? What is keeping us, think about last 1 year and next 1 year. What could be some of the things is going to keep us moving forward? I learned another thing from Sailboat is I add a picture of a shark because you can see the rock and the anchor, but there is unknown you cannot see. So I put a shark and I say, what could be some of the unknowns that may prevent us from reaching our goal and vision? Once we explode those, now I play a lean coffee format where, okay, let's vote on each of those topics, see on each category which gets the highest vote, and let's talk about those. But I use this retro more over, instead of just looking at the past, let's look a year from now. And then it gives me an opportunity to mirror back to the team, going back to the team often and saying that, hey, this is what we agreed on. This is where you wanted to be a year from now. Let's review quarterly. Let's review it half yearly. So it helps me to buy in to their or the team goal and vision.
That's actually a great twist on the Sailboat Retrospective, right? To use it to look back, but also to set the future that you can come back to every now and then and say, hey, are we doing what we said we would like to do?
That's correct. And then I think so. It may not be one of those you can do initially if joining the organization at the first week. I know it. I think so. I have done it always after at least 6 months to a year with a team and organization.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. It's also a great conversation starter, right? If you draw a shark, everybody will go like, "Who's the shark?"
Yeah. Or my drawing skill set. I get a lot of compliment on how good of a drawing I can draw.
All right.
They will say it looks everything but a shark.
Yeah. All right, Tanzil. So now we turn our attention to the Scrum Master role, to our own job and performance on the Scrum Master role. And the question I have for you is, what does success as a Scrum Master mean for you?
I think at different phases, it was a different thing. At this phase of my journey, I feel if I am able to help an individual, team, or organization get to the next level of their agile journey, regardless of where they are, I take that as my success. At any given time, an individual, team, or organization stabilize at where they are and they're not willing to move forward beyond that, I take that to a heart and I feel there must be something I'm missing where, I'm not able to influence. I need to improve on my skill set, how I can move from that coach, facilitator to trainer to coach and a mentor for the team and organization.
That's actually a great contrast, right? Like, it's, if the team is moving forward and taking improvements, then we definitely say, okay, that there's some success at least for the Scrum Master role. But if they are not willing to, if they are just stuck and that's where they want to be, and not move forward, then of course that means the opposite. It means that there's no success. So what do you think are the characteristics of teams that are able to take it to the next level, to help you succeed as a Scrum Master? What do you look for in a team that tells you, okay, this team will want to move forward, will want to improve, and I can help them?
I think it's like engagement during any session. What I'm looking for, is not the right conversation. I'm looking for having conversation. If we can get to a level where collaboration is happening through conversation, we will get that right at the next phase. But if nobody is willing to speak up, they're not feeling safe to speak up, we did not provide them with a safe environment. We expect so much out of our teams. However, a lot of time we fail to provide them with a safe environment. And that's where I really appreciated the coaching leadership of my current organization, where leadership asked for an agile maturity assessment, and our coaching leadership went back and said, before we look into agile maturity, let's do a survey and let's look into the health assessment or health of a team. Are we even providing them with a healthy environment to grow and mature into their agile journey? I'm a firm believer of building partnership. I'm not looking for overnight change. I'm looking for how I can make teams, individuals, and organization life better as we continue to find opportunities to improve. Because end of the day, is are the cultural hangovers organization and teams have, and is not easy to let go.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about cultural hangovers. I also talked about that in your intro. What do you mean by cultural hangovers?
So this is how I learned, and I became a fan of it from one of my coach. Is a lot of time we get rewarded and awarded for certain acts, and that could be anti patterns, it could be better practices or not so good practices. Letting those go are very difficult. Most importantly, culture is what we define, or if a group of people accept a behavior, that becomes a culture. As simple as my household. We ate dinner at 8 p.m., between 8 to 9 p.m. That was culture of our home, where at some point, somebody within the household, my wife or I, said, this little too late. How about we bring it up at 5 o'clock? And we had back and forth, is 5 o'clock too early, 8 o'clock too late? Okay, let's meet in between 6 o'clock. And eventually 6 o'clock having dinner, it became our culture of our home. So this is not right or wrong. Is an agreement between a group of people that becomes a culture. And a lot of time, knowing or unknowingly, team acts which they may got rewarded or not rewarded, but that becomes their culture. Breaking those culture is the important part to improve.
And I think that's the cultural aspect, right? Like, what becomes culture is very important. And you talk about cultural hangover, if I understood correctly, as the things that become culture, but we don't want them to become culture. They just become because that's how we behave. That's what we define. Is that what you mean?
That's correct, because it's a behavior. If we change those behavior, eventually culture will change.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that is one of the things that I very often come back to, is that we talk about culture, and of course culture is very important, but culture is fuzzy, right? It's not easy to go and say, hey, let's change this aspect of the culture. But one of the things that you said, which is incredibly important and also powerful and actionable for us as Scrum Masters, is that if you change behavior, you change culture. It's a very important tool to have in mind, because it's not always easy to even agree what drives culture. But if we can change behavior, we can directly affect culture.
That's correct. And it's a lot of times Vasco is easier to go back to our strength. It might be a better practice or not. It could be even an anti-pattern, but it's easy to go back to our comfort zone, what worked for us in the past. So getting over those take some discipline, take some action item.
And again, it takes us going back to basics, right? Talking about behaviors and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
You're
Very
right.
good. Thank you very much for sharing that story, Tanzil.
Same here, Vasco.
Part of a successful Scrum Master job is to help the product owner. Tomorrow we explore that critical role in Scrum, the product owner role. Tune in to learn about product owner anti-patterns, what you can do to help the product owner, and a real-life example of what a great product owner is and what made it so. Tomorrow on our Friday Product Owner episode. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.